Welcome back to the Cozy Rosy Crochet channel. I am so excited to have you here today as I take you through how to stitch the Fuji Curved Bag. This bag features a front flap so that everything inside your bag is kept a little bit more secure, whether you're out and about on holiday or you're just simply strutting your stuff about town. The materials you're going to need to make your very own Fuji Curved Bag, I'm going to recommend my very own Cozy Rosy UK 3mm recycled cotton macramé cord. The shade that I'm using today is the light beige, and in the shop you can find there are 6 other colour choices to choose from, and it's available on its own, with the kit, or just as a PDF pattern to download straight away. So the recommended hook size is a 5 or a 6mm hook. For this pattern I am going to be using the recommended 6mm crochet hook. For the strap, you can attach the strap using 2 macramé rings, or you can opt to just make your strap a little bit longer. You're also going to need either a button or a toggle so that you can add a little closure to the front of your bag. And to make it easier to join the panels together, I would recommend grabbing a couple of stitch markers, and you're going to need a darning needle with a thicker eye so that you can fit the macramé cord through it to weave in those ends. Gather all of your materials and let's get started. This bag is constructed by making an oval back panel, which also creates the front panel that folds over the body of the bag, and then we make a front section that also includes the side element of the bag as well. So we're going to start by making a slip knot and placing that onto our hook. We're going to then make a chain of 19. We're just going to yarn over and pull through. Oops. 19 times. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 18 and 19. We're then going to rotate our chain so we can work into the back bumps of our chain. We're going to start by working a US double crochet into the 4th chain from hook. So there's number 1, 2, 3, and there is number 4. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook underneath the back bump of our chain, yarn over, bring a loop up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. By working into the back bump, it leaves our stitches visible from the other side of our chain, which is going to make it easier to work in the other side of our chain. I've placed my skein into a yarn bowl so that I can pull some off without the massive roll of cotton running away. We're then going to work 1 US double crochet into each chain across to the last chain, continuing to work into the back bump of our chain. Once you've worked a couple of these, the back bumps become a little bit more apparent, and it is going to make working on the other side of our beginning chain that much easier. So continue working 1 US double crochet into each chain across to that last chain, and I'm going to meet you there when you've got 1 chain remaining all the way down here. Once you've worked all the way across your beginning chain and you have the last chain remaining, we're going to work into the last chain, working 4 double crochets all into the same space. My recommendation is that you try and put 2 pieces of that chain onto your hook with your first stitch, just to prevent any holes. So that's 1, 2, and I'm slightly rotating, continuing to work into that same chain. 3, and the final one for number 4. So we're now going to work across the other side of our beginning chain, because we've just worked into that last chain, filling that up with 4 double crochets. We're going to work, oops, move that tail out of the way. We're going to work into the other side of our beginning chain, working 1 double crochet into each chain across to that last chain. I am going to also work over my tail because then I don't have to weave it in. I'm just going to hold it against the side of my project as I work those double crochets. So that's one. So once you've worked all the way back down your beginning chain, we're going to work into the base of that beginning chain 3 that we made. We are working 3 double crochets. So that's 1, 2, and 3. We're then going to join to the top of that chain 3 with a slip stitch. So this is the top of our first stitch. We've worked into the chain 1, chain 2. We want to join into that chain 3, or the third chain of those stitches that we skipped. Just going to insert through, pick up 2 loops of that beginning chain and join to the top with a slip stitch. There we go. And we should look a little bit like that. At the end of round 1, you should have a total stitch count of 38 double crochets, remembering that that beginning chain 3 does count as a stitch. Going into round 2, we begin with a chain of 3. We're going to work a double crochet into the same stitch as the chain 3 we've just made. So that's our second double crochet into the same place that we joined. We are then going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 15 stitches, which should take us to where we started working those 4. So we should be to there. So we're going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 15 stitches. So we're going to yarn over and continue working that US double crochet, working 1 into each of the next 15 stitches. Once you've worked 1 double crochet into each of the next 15, we're going to be working into the next 4 stitches, working 2 double crochets into each of the next 4. So we're working 2 double crochets into, that's number 1. So that's 1 and 2. I'm going to work 2 double crochets again. Oops, make sure I get the stitch into the next. So that's the second time. 2 double crochets again into that next stitch for a third time. And 2 double crochets once again into the next stitch. And that's just us increasing around the curve of this bag. We're then going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 15 stitches, and at that point we will have 3 stitches remaining. Once you've worked 1 double crochet into each of the next 15 stitches, you should have 3 stitches remaining. This one is your slip stitch, so it doesn't count. And we're going to work 2 double crochets into each of the last 3 stitches. So that's 1 and 2 for the first time. 1 and 2 for the second time, and 1 and 2 for the third time. We're then going to join to the top of that beginning chain 3 with a slip stitch to join the round. At the end of round 2, you should have a total stitch count of 46 double crochets, including that beginning chain 3 that we've just joined to. Even I have to double check my stitch count because, of course, we want it to be perfect. Going into round 3, we are once again beginning with a chain of 3. That counts as our first double crochet, and we're going to work another double crochet into the same stitch as to where we joined. So that's the second one. We're then going to work 2 double crochets into the next stitch as well. So that's 1, and back again into the same stitch for a second double crochet. We're then going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 15 stitches. So that's 1, 2, and that's number 15. We're then going to work 2 double crochets into each of the next 8 stitches. So we're increasing into each of the next 8. So that's number 1, and that's the second number 1. Doing that for a second time. For a third time. This is number 4. Number 5. Number 6. Number 7. And number 8. So we're keeping that beautiful curve in this oval that we're creating by working these increases evenly. Once you've worked those 8 increased stitches, we are then going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 15 stitches. Once you've worked those 15 stitches, you should have 6 stitches remaining, remembering that that is our slip stitch and doesn't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Into each of those last 6 stitches, we are going to be increasing once again, working 2 double crochets into each of the next 6 stitches. That's 1 and 2 for the second time. That's the 2 for the third time. That's the 4th time. 5th time. 2. And finally for the 6th time. We are going to join with a slip stitch to the top of that chain 3 that we began with, so just pushing through and slip stitching. Try and make my slip stitch a little bit smaller. So you can see that that panel is getting a little bit wider and a little bit longer with every round that we are making. At the end of round 3, you will now have a stitch count of 62 double crochets. If you're looking to count the rounds, look for the middle line and then count out. So 1, 2 and 3. So we've completed 3 rounds, and believe it or not, there are only 3 more to go. Going into round 4, we begin with a chain of 3. We're then going to work another double crochet into the same stitch as our chain 3. We're then going to work 1 double crochet into the next stitch. We're going to work an increase of 2 double crochets into the next stitch. So that's 1 and a second stitch. and then 1 double crochet into the next. We're then going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 15 stitches. That's 1, 2. Once you've worked 1 double crochet into each of the next 15 stitches, we're going to be working 2 double crochets into the next stitch, followed by 1 double crochet into the next 8 times. So we're working an increase into the first stitch, so that's 1, and 2 double crochets into one stitch, followed by 1 double crochet into the next, so that's the first time, and we're going to do that for a total of 8 times. So this is number 2, so 2 double crochets into the first stitch, and 1 double crochet into the next for the second time. So 2 double crochets into the first stitch, and 1 double crochet into the next. So that's 3 times. This is for number 4. So 2, and 1 more into the next. So that's 4 times. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're doing it again, so 2 double crochets into the next, and 1 double crochet into the next for the 5th time. Repeating it again, this time for a 6th time. So 2, and 1. This is for number 7. 2 into the next, and 1 into the next again. So this is the final repeat, and I'm going to run out. Hang on. Oh, it also wrapped itself around my bottle of water, or my glass of water. This is our final increase, working 2 double crochets into the next stitch, and 1 double crochet into the next. So we've increased around that curve once again, looking very beautiful. We are then going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 15 stitches, and that will take us back to where that increase is. So 1 double crochet into each of the next 15 stitches. Once we've worked 1 double crochet into each of the next 15 stitches, we are back to working our increase again. So we're working 2 double crochets into the next stitch and 1 double crochet into the next 6 times. So that's 1 and 2 into the next stitch and 1 stitch into the next. So that's the first time of the 6. So this is number 2. So 2 and 1 for the second time. Let's do the third time. And 1 stitch into the next. This is number 4. That's the 4th time. We should have 4 stitches remaining. So we've got 2 into the next one. And 1 into the next again. That's the 5th time we've done it. This is our final time. You can see I've made my slip stitch a very bit smaller there. So we're working 2 double crochets into the next, and 1 double crochet into the last to finish this round. At the end of round 4, we are going to join with a slip stitch to the top of our chain 3, pushing through the middle, picking up 2 loops and joining. I pull, I should make that slip stitch a little bit smaller. Rotate that one, it's already getting too big to go on screen. At the end of round 4, you should now have a stitch count of 78 double crochets, and it should be laying almost perfectly flat. Going into round 5, once again we begin with our chain of 3. We are then going to work another double crochet into the same stitch as where we did our chain 3. We're then going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So that's 1, and 1 into the next again. We're then going to work 2 double crochets into the next stitch, so that's 1 and 2 into the same stitch, followed by 1 double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, so that's 1 into that stitch and 1 into the next. We're then going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 15 stitches once again. Once we've worked 1 double crochet into each of the next 15 stitches, we're going to work our increase all the way around. So this time we are starting with 2 double crochets into the next stitch and 1 double crochet into each of the next 2. So 2 into the first stitch, and then 1 double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. We're going to repeat that all the way across 8 times. So this is the second time. So that was 2 into the first one, and then 1 double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So we've got 1 increase, 1 double crochet into each of the next 2, 1 increase, 1 double crochet into each of the next 2. We're going to do that 8 times, so we've already done it twice, 6 more times to do it. So continue on working 2 double crochets into the next stitch, and then 1 double crochet into each of the next 2. Do it for a total of 8 times, and then I'll meet you ready for the next part of this round. Once you've worked all the way around, repeating that 8 times, you should end with 1 double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. We are then going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 15 stitches. Once you have worked 1 double crochet into each of the next 15, we are ready to work our final set of increases on this round. Once again, we are working 2 double crochets into the next stitch, 1 and 2, and then working 1 double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. We're going to work that for a total of 6 times, and you should end with 1 double crochet into each of the last 2 stitches, because we're working 2 double crochets into the next stitch, and then 1 double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. Once you've worked those final 6 repeats of the increase, we are going to join to the top of our chain 3 once again. Make sure I get 2 loops of it with a slip stitch. Make that a little bit smaller. There we go. And at the end of round 5, you should have 94 double crochets. Going into round 6, we are going to shorten the stitch height and prepare to make it beautiful. So we're starting this round of round 6 with a chain of 1. That does not count as a stitch, and we're going to work 2 US single crochets into the same stitch as where we've joined. So that's 1, and another one into the same stitch. We're then going to work, if I get some yarn, We're then going to work 1 US single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. That's 1, 2, and 3. We're going to increase into the next stitch, working 2 single crochets before working 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches once again. So that's 1, 2, and 3. You've guessed it, we are going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 15 stitches. Once you've worked those 15 single crochets, we're going to start our increases for a total of 8 times. We're going to work 2 single crochets into the next stitch, followed by 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. We're going to work that for a total of 8 times. So that was number 1. So 2 single crochets into the next, followed by 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. So repeat that for a further 6 times all the way to the end of our increases, and then we'll be ready for the next part of round 6. So once you've worked that increase 8 times, you should be back onto your side once again, and we're just going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 15 stitches. Once you've worked those 15 single crochets, we are back to our final increase section. So once again, for 6 times, we are going to work 2 single crochets into the next stitch, followed by 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. So repeat that 6 times and you should be at the end of this round, which is actually our final round of the back panel that creates the flap. So at the end of round 6, you should have a stitch count of 110 you should have a stitch count of 110 single crochets, and we're going to fasten off. It's up to you. Of course I don't have scissors, do I? I have a stash, hang on. We're all the same when it comes to not keeping all our tools about us. So fastened off. Now you can join with a slip stitch to the top of that first chain. I'm actually going to bring this end through and create an invisible join just to make it super neat. I'll pretend to be right-handed, hang on. So we're at the top of our stitch here, and I'm just going to place the needle, underneath that first stitch of the round, pulling the tail all the way through, and then go back through the middle of our last stitch, just underneath the back loop, and that creates a near seamless join. You need to be aware that we won't want to count that. And then you can just weave that end in. I'm going to start by making a little knot. And I'm going to weave it properly a little bit later. So that's that fastened off, and we actually have the flap of our bag. So where this beginning chain has been used, that's going to be at the back, don't worry. And we're going to mark our stitches so that we know exactly where we're going to attach the front panel later on. So we are going to mark where we're going to attach our bag, and we're going to start counting from the first stitch of the round. So that's where I've done my invisible join. I'm going to mark that so I don't count it. That does not count as a stitch. And we're going to be marking the 15th stitch around. I've already placed mine to double check. So 15 stitches around, and then counting from this stitch, we're marking the 33rd stitch around, and that's going to give us a total of 48 stitches, including our marked stitches. So let's double check. So from ignoring where our slip stitch was, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Number 15 is marked. That's my invisible. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32 and 33. So that is where the flap is going to fold, and you're probably looking at this thinking, my goodness, that's a very long front flap. On the wrong side we have that beginning chain where we've just fastened off, but remember we have the bulk of the bag to go in between the flap as well. So this is where we're going to attach the bag. There's a side section and it will line up perfectly just about there eventually when the flap is completely closed. Promise. So let's make the front section of the inside of the bag, so the body of the bag effectively. It's worked very similarly, it's just we're only going to do half a curve for this part. We're going to start by placing a slip knot onto our hook. And this time we're going to be doing a chain of 7. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. Once again, we're going to rotate our chain and work into those back bumps. We're going to work into the 4th chain from hook, working 1 US double crochet. We're then going to work 1 double crochet into the next 2 chains. So that's 1 and 2. And then into our last chain, we're going to work 4 double crochets. So that's 1, 2, start rotating a bit here, aren't I? 1, 2, this is number 3. And number 4. We're going to work back along our beginning chain, working 1 double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, or chains, sorry. So 1, and oh gosh, sorry, 2, oh, we've got another one, sorry. Next 3, I lied, sorry. Oh, I didn't yarn over. And number 3. Once we've worked those 3 double crochets, we're going to work 1 final double crochet into the bottom of that beginning chains that we missed. It's going to be a bit tricky, apparently. There we go. Ooh. So these are not rounds this time, these are rows. So we have a row count here of 12 double crochets at the end of row 1. Going into row 2, we're going to work our chain of 3, and we are turning to work around our stitches. We're going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. So that's 1, 2 and 3. We're then going to work 2 double crochets into each of the next 4 stitches. And that's 1 and a second one into the same stitch. We're going to do that again into the next stitch, so 1 and 2 for the second time, 1 and 2 for the third time, and finally 1 and 2 for the fourth time. We're then going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. And we do need to work into the top of our beginning chain 3 from the previous row. So we're just going to insert our hook through the top of that beginning chain 3 for our final stitch of the round. Oh, row, goodness. So at the end of row 2, you're going to have a stitch count of 16 stitches. For row 3, we begin with that chain of 3. We are turning, ready to work, 1 double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Oh gosh, sorry, my hands are getting tired now pulling through. We're then going to work an increase across the next 8 stitches. So we are working 2 double crochets into each of the next 8 stitches. So 2 double crochets into each of the next 8. So that was number 1. Continue to repeat that a further 7 times, working 2 double crochets into each stitch. We are then going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. Our final stitch is going to be worked into the top of that turning chain. That's number 2, 3, and then number 4 into the top of our turning chain. Going into row 4, we begin with our turning chain of 3. We're turning, ready to work, 1 double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. So that's 1, 2, and 3. We are increasing once again. This time we're going to work 2 double crochets into the next stitch and 1 double crochet into the next 8 times. So we're working 2 double crochets into the next stitch and 1 double crochet into the next. We're repeating that a total of 8 times, working 2 double crochets into the next stitch and 1 double crochet into the next. So repeat that a further 6 times for a total of 8 times, and then we can finish off the row together. You may well have already guessed that we are going to work 1 double crochet into each of the last 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and then number 4. Oh, that chain's a bit tight. There we go. At the end of row 4, you should have a stitch count of 32 stitches. For row 5, we begin with our turning chain of 3. We're turning to make sure that we are ready. Then we are going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. Once again, we are ready to increase. This time we are working 2 double crochets into the next stitch, followed by 1 double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. And that's 1 into 1 and 1 into the next. We're going to repeat that for a total of 8 times, working 2 double crochets into the next stitch, and then 1 double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So repeat that for a further 6 times and you'll have your 4 stitches remaining, and I'll meet you there to work those last 4 together. So when you have just those 4 stitches remaining, we are working 1 double crochet into each of the remaining 4 stitches, which include the top of that turning chain of 3. So at the end of row 5, you should be looking a little bit like that, and you should have a stitch count of 40 double crochets. Going into row 6, we are working our final increase row, but we're actually changing stitch and making them a little bit shorter. So for row 6, we begin with a turning chain of 1. That does not count as a stitch, so we are going to work 1 single crochet into the same stitch as our chain 1, and 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. There's number 3. For our increase on this round, we are going to work 2 single crochets into the next stitch, and then we are going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. We're going to repeat that for a total of 8 times. So we're working 2 single crochets into the next stitch, followed by 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. So continue to repeat that for a total of 8 times, so a further 6, and then you'll have your 4 stitches remaining, which will work together before we continue on to start working the side of our bags. So when you have just your 4 stitches remaining, we are simply working 1 single crochet into the top of each of the last 4 stitches, including of course the top of that turning chain. Now this is going to look very familiar in size, so remember the tail should probably be on the back. If you imagine, that's now going to be the front of the body of our bag, and this is going to be the flap that comes over it. So the back panel creates the back and the front flap at the same time, and now we just have to make the side section of our bag. I should mention that at the end of row 6 you should have 48 stitches, which match those 48 stitches we have marked on that back panel. Going into row 7, we're doing something slightly different. We're going to make our turning chain of 1, and this time we're just going to be working into the back loop of our stitches. This is going to be the right side of our bag, and creating by working into the back loop only of our stitch, it's going to cause our fabric to fold and create a really nice side of our bag. So we're not working into our turning chain of 1, but instead of working underneath the stitch and picking up both loops as our V as we would normally, we're going to insert our hook through the middle of the stitch to pick up the back loop only. We then work the remainder of our single crochet in exactly the same way. Now we're not increasing in this row, we are simply working 1 single crochet into the back loop only of each stitch across. So we push through the middle of the stitch to pick up just that back loop, yarn over, bring our loop up as normal, yarn over and pull through 2. We're going to do that the whole way around, maintaining our stitch count of 48 single crochets. You can see that it's leaving a ridge where we haven't worked into both loops, and it causes our crochet fabric to fold perfectly. So continue working one single crochet into the back loop only of your single crochets from the previous row, and I will meet you at the end of row 7. As I said, your stitch count won't change, it should still be 48 single crochets at the end of row 7. So once you've worked that whole round, you can see that that will fold away from the front of our bag, and we should have that stitch count of 48 at the end of row 7. For rows 8 all the way through to 13 of just single crochet into each stitch around. We always begin with a turning chain of 1, and then this time we're going to work underneath both loops of our stitches, working 1 single crochet into each stitch, a total count of 13 rows for our front panel. We're going to do this for a total of 6 rows, and then we're going to meet back to work a final row which is going to neaten up the top of the front of our bag. So we are simply working a turning chain of 1 and then working underneath both loops of our stitch, working 1 single crochet into each stitch across, turning and repeating it until you've worked that 6 times in total. So once you have finished those rows of single crochets, you should be looking a little bit like that. Make sure that your ridge from where you work those back loops only are visible, because it could be that you've worked, I had to fold mine the other way, and it's looking like that. So make sure that you folded it back on itself so that you can see the front, the ridge and the side at the end of row 13. So our final row for the front and the body of our bag is actually to create our edging all the way around, just to neaten that up a little bit. Let me just get a little bit more yarn. So to do that, we're going to start a turning chain of 1, and we're going to make sure that we have the right side of our project facing. So rather than turning, we're going to rotate to work across the top of our rows. And we're going to place single crochets evenly into the row ends, and we're going to work 34 single crochets all the way across this edge. So you may have to count as you're doing them and make sure you've placed sufficient, just so it's not bunching up. So I'm just going to be inserting into the row end rather than into a stitch. So there we are, that's number 1. Into the hole for number 2. I'm going to ignore that hole there and go straight over here, because we want it to fold over. And you can see that these stitches are just going to neaten up the edge of our project. As a general rule, when you're working into row ends, you're aiming to place 1 single crochet per row of single crochets, and then where we have these chains of 3 and our double crochets, you would work 2 stitches across these. So I have 7 so far. So we're going to work all the way across this edge. So I've already got 1 into that row end, and I'm going to insert my hook. Oh no, I've missed one, hang on. We need one in this row end. There we go. And then we're working into our double crochet. It's important that you kind of pick up a couple of loops rather than going into the space, because otherwise you'll create bigger holes. So where we have spaces, we're using these stitches to kind of break up the beginning chains and the stitches to make it look a little bit neater and to fill up some of that space. So it's going to look like that when it's finished. So continue to work across each of these row ends. You can see that I'm leaning to try and see what I'm doing, sorry. It's going to be a little bit tough going, pushing through, but it really is worth it. And you're aiming for 2 single crochets across each of these double crochet row ends and the chains 3s. So once you have edged all the way around the front of your bag, we are ready to fasten off, but we need to fasten off making sure that we have a tail long enough to sew this section onto our back panel. And as a general rule of thumb, you want at least 2 lengths of what you're sewing together, just to give you a little bit to play with. So I've just measured it alongside here, and I'm going to fasten off. It's quite a length actually, but I'd rather have too much than too little. And once you've done that, I'm going to make a final chain 1. Oh, if I can get it back onto my hook. And then I'm just going to make a chain of 1 and pull that tail all the way through. That will make a lovely secure knot at the top of my bag. Now we are going to need our darning needle and our back panel, and we want to make sure that we are placing these the right ways together. I haven't woven my ends in. If you know me, I hate it. So the front side of your panel will be the pretty side, and you want to match up the wrong side with the wrong side, so that when it folds over, you've got the right side of that back panel showing on the front of your bag. So whichever way makes it feel easier for you. I'm just going to grab that long tail. So you can see how marking these stitches is going to make our life a little bit easier. We have the same number of stitches on the front panel and marked on that back panel. We're going to thread that longer tail from this section on, making sure that we have the wrong sides together. We are simply going to stitch these sections together. I'm going to turn this out because I'm going to put it this way so that the right sides are together for me. So we can join these together using a very simple whip stitch, but to recreate that lovely look of this braid at the front, we're simply going to sew together, working through the back loops only. So I have the wrong side of my project facing here and the wrong side of this one, so they are kind of right sides together. And I'm simply going to work through the back loops of both stitches and pull that the whole way through. And somehow I've managed, no I haven't, I thought I created a knot then, and make sure that that's nice and tight. And then we are simply working through each stitch corresponding on the front and the back sections. And because we already know that we have the right number of stitches, we can simply whip stitch those together. I'll do a couple more and then show you what it's going to look like. So if you're happy with it, you can continue on. So once they are sewn, you're going to have a similar look around the back that matches that loop on the front. And of course you are going to sew a little bit tighter than me. Let's see if I can tighten all of that up. So once it's nice and pulled tight, you won't see where you've sewn anywhere near as much as that looked like then. So we are sewing quite tightly, but we are simply going to work through the back loop and the back loop. So the front loop of that stitch is there, and we're going to sew together quite tightly. Oh, that irritates me so much. All the way around, joining these stitches together. So my last stitch to join, and I'm going to remove that final marker just to really make sure that this is super secure. I'm going to come back through just that top and make sure that's ultra secure. Before I tie off, I want to just check by turning it all the right side out that it looks pretty stunning, doesn't it? So now all that's left to do is I am going to place a little knot on the wrong side. So I'll come back through here. Make sure that's very tight, and I'm going to knot it to itself. If I could see where the loop is. There we are. Want that super tight. So we have our bag with its gorgeously proportioned flap created by the back panel. Obviously, you know me, I have all my ends to weave in, but isn't it? It's pretty much there. All that's left to do is to create. So all that's left to do is, of course, to make our bag handle itself. Now the bag handle is worked in one big round, so it's not super thick, and it's really comfortable to wear. And because we're going to be working around our beginning chain, it is a fixed length, so it doesn't get much bigger than the length of the chain that we're going to make. So I've written it so that we make a chain of 83 if you are planning on attaching it with our macrame rings. Now obviously that adds 2 inches to the length of your handle. So if you are planning on not using the macrame rings, I would recommend that you make a slightly longer chain. So for those of us that are going to be using the macrame rings, and those of us that are not, we all start the same by making a slip knot and placing that onto our crochet hook. We are then going to make a lovely long chain. So for those of you making a bag with the macrame rings for the handle, you're going to make a chain of 83. And for those of you not using the macrame rings, chain 103. So we're just yarning over and pulling through, making that long chain. Make use of your stitch markers if you want. You can mark your 50th chain, and then you know that you've got the first 50 done, and you don't have to count all of them all again if you lose count. So we're going to be making a chain, well, I'm going to be making a chain of 83. I've made 94. I lost count. So I'm sticking with that. That only looks like 84 actually, but I think it might be 94. So make the chain the length that you want. And just like we did before, to keep the strength of the strap and to prevent it from stretching, we are going to work 1 single crochet into the second bump of the chain. So we're working on that other side of our chain and working into those back bumps, working 1 single crochet into each chain all the way back down to the beginning. Sorry, it's going to take a little while, and I'm not going to do this on camera. I'm going to go and get a coffee and enjoy that while I make the first section, and I'll be back when we're going to rotate and work along the other side. That didn't take quite as long as I thought to work down that chain. So once you reach back to where your beginning slip knot was, to rotate and work into the other side of our beginning chain, very simply. And I'm going to work over my tail to weave that in as I go. We're not increasing, we're just, oh no, she says I am increasing there, into the next one, Fiona. So we're just, oh goodness, so we're working all the way back down to the beginning. Now if you are adding your macrame rings, don't fasten off at the end. We're going to attach the first end to our macrame ring with this current yarn, so don't fasten off, and I'll meet you back once we've worked all the way back down into the other side of our beginning chain. Oh, made it all the way back down. So I really like the thickness of this strap. It's not overly large. So we're going to need our macrame rings, just the one to start, and we're going to start attaching the strap to the macrame rings and making a chain of 1. And then we're going to insert our hook into the center of the macrame ring, yarn over and bring your loop up, yarn over and pull through 2, and that's our first single crochet. We're going to do a second, so we insert, yarn over, bring a loop up, yarn over and pull through 2, and then we are going to slip stitch back to our handle. So it doesn't have to be exact, but you want it to be that side of it. So where you've slip stitched where you've done your chain one there, we're going into the other side of our handle effectively to secure those together, she says. There we go. Oh, have I twisted myself here? Yes, I have. Let's try that again. So don't follow me there. So we want to, yeah, no, that is right. So we're going into the other side of that bottom of the handle. I'm going to tighten that all up and just do a slip stitch. So yarn over, pull through and straight through the loop on your hook, and that will attach your handle very nicely together. I'm going to make a little final chain one that I can weave in and I can fasten off there. And that attaches your handle to your macrame ring. I'm going to repeat this for the other side, but I want to make sure that they are facing the same way. So I'm just going to make sure that my handle is not twisted, and I'm going to insert my hook into the outer edge of that short side just here and pick up one of those stitches. I'm going to place the yarn on my hook and bring it through and chain one just to secure. Then once again I can bring in my macrame cord, insert my hook into the middle, yarn over and pull through two. I'm going to do a second single crochet into the macrame ring, and then finally bring the handle back up and slip stitch into that next stitch of my handle. Make that nice and tight, a little chain of one and fasten off. Ooh. I can weave that tail in. You can even wrap it around the handle more if you want to. So now we have our handle. I'm going to quickly weave these ends in. So all that's left to do is, of course, make sure that your handle is not twisted at all, so it lays perfectly flat with your macrame rings together, which mine should be doing. There we are. And then we're going to sew these onto the side of our bags. If you haven't used the macrame rings, you can very simply sew it onto the middle few rows of your bag. You don't want to go too high or too low, and you're going to thread quite a long length onto your darning needle. To get the first section, come from the inside of the bag underneath where you want the macrame ring positioned. I'm going just about 2 rows, maybe 3 rows underneath the side. I'm starting from the widest point of my macrame ring, and we're just going to come through so that we have a little tail left. Position, oops, sorry for the shaking camera, I just hit it. Position your macrame ring where you want it. You want it as central as possible, and then come back through the other way and then pull it through. And I'm going to tie, try and show you what I'm doing. Try and tie these two ends together with a stitch in between so that they are nice and securely attached. Don't want that knot coming through. And then very simply, once it's where you want it to be, keep it in position. And we're just going to sew through at the same point, come out on the same row. Oops. Oh, I want there. There we go. On your bag, wrapping around the macrame ring to make it nice and pretty and nice and secure all at the same time. A couple more times. It looks similar to what we have at the top of the macrame ring. Once you're happy with how many times you have securely wrapped that macrame ring, on the inside of the bag You can either tie it to that same end again or somewhere else to make it super secure. I'm just going to use the same tail, and I'm not going to do 2, I'm going to do 3 knots going different ways. And then I can weave these ends in, and that's joined the macrame ring to our bag. I'm going to make a long enough tail to weave in this time, and then I still have enough yarn left to sew on the other macrame ring. I am going to double check that I am sewing on so that the bag handle is not twisted. I'm going to triple check myself. Lovely. And then I can repeat it with the same technique and the same number of rows down. I'm going to tuck these ends in just for a moment. Just pretend that I have sewn all of those ends in. All that is left to do is the one bit I can't do right now because I don't have my button with me. But you want to position your bag, and then you will see in your front panel there is an increase almost perfectly in the middle of your bag, and that is where you're going to insert and sew on your toggle or your button so that your bag flap sits absolutely perfectly. You can come through these 2 double crochets right through here, position it where you want your button to go, and then that will secure the flap of your bag. So mine is going to go right there as soon as I can find the button I want to use. A huge thank you for joining me. Don't forget to send me photos of your completed projects so that I can celebrate your success with you, and I will see you in the next video.